Expected better. Turnovers are always a huge thing and not something that, we expect. But they happened, and we were able to overcome them. So a little didn't find our rhythm as quickly as we wanted to, but, did enough to win, and that's the important thing.
With Harvey, what you like from what you saw from him?
Yeah, obviously he had the big 50-yard run, really a great run. He's explosive, good vision. Really excited about how he played, and excited for what he's got going in the future. So really, really good first performance, we felt.
Joe, I asked Sean here, but what went into the decision of today
Yeah, it's a tough decision because Jalil's such a good player. I think most of it was just third down protection and just a little stouter in there, but. It's hard to not have Jalil up there on game day, but it was mostly protection. I think every week it'll be a conversation, and as you're watching a lot of film with Cincinnati, because the coordinator in Indianapolis was there last year, and we're watching our game last year, and Jalil had such a good game running it, so I'm sure he'll have games where he's up based on injury or situation. So. We still feel there's a real bright future for him.
Well, Josh, since you guys took over in 2023, no wide receiver has more red zone touchdowns than Court. And I know Sundays was just outside the high red. But what has been, what are the traits that really allow him to be such a weapon for you guys so consistently?
Yeah, I think, obviously when you're as big as he is, there's a great catching radius. And when you get to the red zone, things get tighter. And so you can't always put the ball exactly, right on the numbers or right on the face mask because of where defenders are. So, if you're in the back of the end zone, it goes high and no one really jumps up and extends and catches those balls like Court does. Fade balls, his physicality and body position and ability to track the football. So, it's big receivers are valuable in the red zone, and he certainly is the epitome of that. Oh, good. He had the big touchdown run there in the second half. Runs hard. We got four guys that we really like handing the ball to, but JK and RJ obviously are, the two guys that are being featured and thought they both ran really well.
Bo had a bunch of passes where he was precise and threw the ball well in the tight windows, and then a couple other throws that, you're scratching your head at.
Yeah.
A little bit. What caused that inconsistency?
Oh, I think, it's mostly just timing and where your feet are at. There were a couple on the move, that, a couple of the interceptions were movement throws. But I think it's just getting your feet set in the right position, which he often, it's always a challenge with a quarterback like him because you don't want him to just be a statue in there. When he moves, good things happen, and sometimes he moves and throws with his feet not, perfectly set, and most of the times he's very accurate like that. But I think if he misses, it's usually just, his lower body.
What do you see from the Colts defense maybe that was different from first week?
I think there are some similarities in that, they've got a 3 technique in Buckner, who's one of the best in the league, just like Simmons, and then nose guard's really good, Stewart, and then their 2 defensive. So I think their defensive line, I think overall is really, really strong. They got a premier player, but they got 4 really good players. There's some new faces out there that weren't there last year, but number 44 Zaire, their linebacker, really good player, good safeties. I know they're a little banged up at corner, so we'll see who plays. But, I know that Lou does a really good job, and it's always a challenge facing him. So it'll be interesting to see how much, we didn't get to see a whole lot last week, but it'll be interesting to see what packages they have up and if he's had time to get everything going on defenses, because they were very experienced in Cincinnati. So, like always early in the season, a lot of fog and friction of war as far as what's going to happen, with what we're going to see on defense. But, really good personnel and well coached.
As one of offensive coaches, how do you guys approach your first 15 plays? Us old heads will tell you, like Mike Shanahan.
Yeah.
We got 15 scripted plays.
Yeah, we always put a opener list together. Sean handles that, and he might ask what our favorites are, but he puts together, just depends on the week, it might be 11, 12, 15. And then obviously as the game's going, you hit a third down, you're off it. You get in the red zone, you're off it. So, there's some feel with Sean as far as, how strictly he sticks to that script, even if it may be first down and he just feels he wants to call another play, and it makes sense when he does that. So, we've got an opener. We walk through them. The players all know, we're not always strict and dead stay on it, but usually it's pretty close.
It's not often you see a guy like Talanoa Hufanga, it'll be just his second game. That the preparation goes in.
Well, we watched him in college actually on staff, and he's a special player. I mean, the size, the ball skills. He's got some. I told Sean this. He's got some Taysom Hill in him, right? He can run the football. I mean, he's thrown the football in college. He's a receiver. He's an inline tight end blocker. I mean, he's all around good player. You saw it last week. Obviously in the first 2 or 3 drives. I mean, the plays are being designed for him to make them, and he's making them. So having a plan for that player is going to be critical. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How are you guys working with the staff? I know he's not a starter right now.
Right.
Trying to get as many looks for him
Yeah.
as possible.
That's a good question. That's important. Obviously, with a young first-round pick, he's super talented. But, being a nickel and a dime, kind of a swing player, it takes time to kind of get enough looks to kind of learn everything. So right now we're just trying to focus on getting him more looks every day in practice and in games, and playing him in certain packages where we can grow the player. He is obviously talented and super smart, but he needs more time on task. And J-Max played so well at nickel for us also. So it's a luxury to kind of, go slow with this player. Sometimes you can play guys too soon and they can have too many public failures and they can't recover from those. So it's been a luxury to kind of bring him along slow, still play him. He's still getting live game reps. He got about 22 reps last week. He's making plays. He's playing well in his role. So that's a good thing for him and us.
Vance only giving up 133 yards in the first game. How pleased were you with the defense?
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that you
Yeah. I mean, I was pleased we won. Obviously our job is to play defense, and I thought, the first third down kind of upset me a little bit. They got a big play there, and we've been focusing on winning third downs and not giving up explosive plays, in preseason and even last year when teams got explosives, especially on third down, they scored on us. So if we can win third downs and keep the big plays to a minimum, it helps us win.
Is the message this week, it's a bigger challenge of when, the quarterback who had never played before, the quarterback who's played quite a bit.
No, Mike, we don't see it that way. I think every week in this league is a challenge. I thought last week they had that great personnel, right? Experienced linemen, a tight end who can make plays for him. So it wasn't like it was a JV team last week. This week it's a different challenge, but it's the same NFL challenge. I thought Daniel Jones played very well for him last week. I mean, obviously he scored every possession. The back is the key. With the Colts, I mean, he's a special player in my opinion. We saw it last year. So Pittman's a great player also, 84 to tight end. So it's a different challenge, but it's the same challenge for us.
I know we asked Sean a bunch about talking to guys who have familiarity with a team or a system. Davis has really good familiarity with Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
Do you spend any extra time?
Yeah.
That is their favorite thing to do?
I think that's overrated a little bit, because players do grow, systems change. He's being coached differently. Obviously, what's on tape is what we prepare for. Having those side conversations is not rare. You have them, but how much they matter, I'm not sure. We've had them in the past, and they helped a little bit. Didn't help any. So, but you watch the film, have your plan to stop what they do best and move on.
Vance, you talked a lot this offseason about Huff being a tone setter.
Yeah.
And so to have 9 tackles, of course, fumble in the first half, and really just, Bo said that he looked up and felt like he made every tackle.
Yeah.
What was just your impression of his debut?
My God, I was impressed, especially after watching the actual tape, and the range he played with, how he capped off plays for us. I mean, he's making plays from 15 yards deep. You know, he's making them for 4 and 5 yard stops. So he was obviously a special player on tape watching him, you know, with the Niners, but he's the same player. I mean, he has such great range, and he's a bigger safety. So when he gets there, man, he makes some noise. He can cover, he can blitz. So, I mean, he has no weakness in his game. But it was really fun watching him and Brandon Jones kind of keep some of those runs from popping. You know, they were 5 and 6 yards. That should have been probably 10 and 12 with normal safeties. But those two guys capped off the ball really well for us on Sunday.
Good and bad Sunday? How would you describe overall?
Some good and some bad. Yeah, I mean, listen, I thought there was a couple, the one play, obviously, if we're going to start the things we've got to improve on, that play before the half, obviously we gave up the big return. That can't happen. A little poor execution on that one. But, listen, I thought there was a lot of good that came out of the game. And, like a lot of first games, obviously you guys have heard the old coaching adage of, the early season improvement. So that's what we're looking for. So.
Just one game, but what do you think of your rookie final?
Listen, I think that was part of the good. I mean, obviously we all knew there was a really small sample size, like we talked about last week coming into the game. But for him, to get 3 punts inside the 20, create some long fields last week for them, that was really, really big. That's something we're looking to do when we punt from that area of the field. And so I thought really good, good first week one for him.
Is there something that can carry over, especially for a young player? As you said, hasn't got a lot of reps and then just had a game like that. Is that something that can carry over into the future?
Yeah, it's a great foundation, right? It's a good learn. All these experiences for him are kind of first timers, for us in the NFL, for him in the NFL, and so it's definitely a good foundation. I made mention to him early in his training camp that there's a lot of punts there in the NFL from that kind of middle of the field range, 40 to 40, and first thing he said to me after the game was, "Coach, you weren't kidding. All 3 punts are kind of in that midfield range, and really with the new kickoff rules, that's your opportunity to pin teams back. It's really hard to pin teams back now on the kickoff, like the old days. And so your opportunity to pin teams back and create long fields is going to be in that punt game. So that's going to be, but it's a really good start for him. Definitely something to build off of. Wasn't perfect, but certainly stuff he can learn from. Yeah.
You mentioned this offseason that teams weren't going to be willingly giving up the 35
Yep.
very often, and I think we saw the highest kickoff return rate in week 1 since 2010. Was it even more than maybe you guys thought going in, of just how much that was going to change that number?
I think I said like 75, 80% when someone asked me. I think we thought about every, 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5 would be in play. I think the real interesting thing was, because I kind of looked through the stats and looked through the numbers and looked through all the kickoffs, I'm going to say the 25% of the balls that didn't get returned, probably about half of those, the kicker made a mistake and either put it too deep or too short. So I'm going to say that the number probably with the intent was going to even be higher. We had one of ours, Will's first kickoff sailed on him. We were going to put that ball in play. The Titans, same thing, Joey Slide, their first ball was supposed to be in play, sailed on him. So there's going to be that little bit of a feeling out period for the kickers here in the beginning, but the accuracy of the kickers, I think what you're going to see as the year goes on is going to be super important with this new rule. But we thought it would be about that. Had we not changed the touchback last year, right before the rule went through, this is what we would have saw last year. But I'm really not that surprised, because I think teams, like I said, analytically, you're not just going to give up the 35. I know there was a lot of talk about our end of the half scenario and sequence. We didn't execute. We got to get the ball on the ground there, inside the 35-yard line, get the time off the clock, and not just give them the ball at the 35 with 2 timeouts and 16 seconds where they can run 3 plays and get into field goal range. So, had we executed, it would look like a great call, right? It's like most calls. But I think when you look through games and look through the league, there was a lot of those scenarios that came up end of the half, end of the game, where teams are trying to get some seconds off the clock, much like the Minnesota-Chicago play.
Some teams might be more willing to take the ball first now instead of deferring to kind of get that field position battle.
Yeah, listen, I think as this plays out and you see some teams, that there's some teams that are going to be a little bit more touchback oriented than put it in play oriented. Against those type of teams, you may decide on a good weather day, or depending on the conditions, if you have a really good chance of starting the game with the ball at the 35-yard line, so it may change that defer decision a little bit. Where in the past you really didn't think about it. Most teams will kind of just defer and let's go. I think as this plays out, you see where the field position is going to be. I think that there's certainly going to come into play.
How much do you like that strategy element of it, whether it's that or the end of the half scenario, or when there was the
Well, I think it's great because it's made the play relevant again. For so many years, this kickoff play got a little bit irrelevant. You know, I think we saw a Super Bowl a couple of years ago with 13 or 14 touchbacks or whatever it was. Now, you know, this play has become more exciting. It's become safer. It's become a must-watch play. I think when some people saw that, I think the fans and the media and coaches and players, when we all saw the stats from week one, it was like one of those kind of like, whoa, didn't realize it was going to be that much. But again, you know, kind of as we've been studying this thing for the last 4 or 5 years, this is kind of the model we anticipated, and kind of this is what we saw, when we were putting this thing together. So, you know, a lot to be played out, but I mean, as you guys know, now when you're watching these games, you're like, I got to watch this kickoff. It's pretty cool, and it now plays into the game management part, the timing, you know, end of the half like our scenario, or end of the game like the Chicago, Minnesota. So these are now discussions you're having in our game management meetings. So it just makes the play a lot more relevant, rather than, hey, we're just going to boot the ball out. No, go ahead.
Last one, Cease.
Yeah.
Marvin Mims is known as a self-starter.
Yeah.
So when he loves that punt, he's throwing his helmet.
Yeah.
What kind of teachable moment is that for an all-pro returner? And do you talk to him in the moment? Obviously, during the week you talk about it. How do you approach it?
Yeah, listen, I'm going to be honest. With a player like Marvin, I really don't feel the need to overcoach him. Like you said, he's kind of a self-corrector, self-motivator. I don't know if I saw him drop a punt like that since I've been here. Even in practice, you know, we have a kind of a muff reel and a fumble reel on every single player in the return in our video system. I don't even know if he was on there. And so that's a kind of a, you know, just a mishap. It's certainly not a time to start browbeating somebody or, you know, getting down on somebody or, and so, you know, it's kind of, hey, next play. You know, Coach talks about it all the time. Coach Payton is a next play mentality guy. Let's move on. And so, you know, there's no one that's going to be harder on himself than Marvin. And so in that moment, it's just, hey, let's go next play. We already know what he's about. We know what he's done, you know, and we know the product he's put on the field. So it wasn't an overcoach moment, I didn't think.